Welcome to another episode of the Trusted Advisor podcast and video series powered by the Retail Solutions Providers Association. Our goal on the pod is to accelerate the success of today's and tomorrow's leaders in the retail IT industry. I'm Jim Roddy, back with you again. Thank you so much for joining us. So back in 2020, the most popular Trusted Advisor podcast of the year focused on the cannabis vertical. If you want to watch or listen to it again, it's episode number 11. So today we're bringing back two of the guests that we talked with back then for an update on the cannabis market, and hopefully we're going to produce again the best RSPA podcast of the year. No pressure at all to our guests. So our first special guest is Dave Albert, the founder and president of RSPA VAR member Retail Control Systems. RCS is headquartered in New Hampshire, but also operates an office in Fort Collins, Colorado, in part to help the company gain more traction in the cannabis vertical. That office markets their product Anthea, powered by RCS. Hey, Dave, great to talk with you again. Welcome back to the pod.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Be episode number 2.
Yes, yeah, run it back, like they say on the basketball court.
Right.
Our second special guest is Duane Roebuck, a senior channel manager of retail and IoT at distributor BlueStar. Duane has worked at BlueStar for 8 years and has focused much of his energy lately on the cannabis vertical, attending and speaking at in-person and virtual trade shows in this space. Duane, thanks for your time today, and welcome back to you as well.
Hey, great to be back. I appreciate you setting the bar so low there, right from the very beginning, We win a championship and it's like, what are you going to do for the next championship?
That's exactly right. You win one, you got to go win the next one. You don't look at that trophy forever. Yeah. So, all right, well, looking forward to doing this again in 2021. I should also mention Dave and Duane are both active members of the RSPA cannabis community. That's a group we launched in late 2020. It's now grown to over 100 channel executives who are interested in this emerging vertical market. So even though this is the first time we're recording a podcast together in a year, it's not our first conversation in a year, right? I don't have to say like, right. How's the family doing? I haven't seen you in forever. So we connect on a regular basis, but want to have a public conversation here. So my first question to both of you, and Dave, if you could answer it first. So a year ago, the first question that I asked you was about the stigma around cannabis products. And I'm curious, have you seen the aversion to cannabis lessen over the past 12 months? And so you're on the front lines of this. Do you think that our society in general, and maybe technology executives in particular, are now more comfortable talking openly about cannabis and marijuana than they were a year ago?
Yeah, it's been an interesting last 12 months, 6 months. I don't know if the acceptance has accelerated. I know it's because of the pandemic, and it's the least of our worries as far as accepting cannabis as a. But I think the acceptance is greater than ever, and there's a lot of buzz out there with companies, various companies. You're talking about banks are getting involved. I had a few beers with a local bank president this past weekend, and I just threw it out there. I asked him as far as what he thinks as far as the cannabis industry. And he was, of course, it's Colorado. They have probably 10 branches, and he was saying that they're ready. They're locked and loaded, as he put it, ready for it and stuff. And they think it's gonna happen sooner than later. So they're actually doing some pre-planning as far as when it goes legal. They're actually doing some promotions within the cannabis industry. So when it happens, they'll be ready. They want to be the first out of the gates in Colorado. So it's kind of interesting. But there's a lot of we've gotten a lot of phone calls because of some of the meetings we've had from distributors, from financial institutions are calling, credit card processors are trying to figure out how they can get in there. They're really starting to realize that the legalization of cannabis is going to happen sooner than later. So I think there's a lot of buzz about it right now. So it's pretty interesting. And also we had an ebook that we did with BlueStar, and we sent it out to the cannabis community, and the response was overwhelming. We had some 250 responses, and a lot of them were, it's interesting, a lot of them were either retailers, dispensaries, some of them were growers, but there's a lot of them that were interested observers sitting out there. There's a lot of financial people and consultants, so there's a lot of talk out there as far as who's gonna win first. So it's exciting.
Got it. So the folks who have been in cannabis, it's more popular than ever, and it sounds like you're saying the folks who haven't are showing more interest, and they're talking about it, and it's above a whisper. Are you seeing the same thing Duane, that folks are more open to affiliating themselves with the market or investigating as opposed to more in a hush-hush manner?
I am, and if you look at how things are going nationally and the national viewpoint, a year ago, we said 75% of Americans polled, believe, it should be or had a favorable opinion towards cannabis. If you look at it now, even across generations, we're seeing where polling is placing cannabis favorability of over 50%, and it even goes, it spans across political parties as well. And so, when you have that type of traction, every month I'm talking to someone else who's looking to get into this industry, looking to be affiliated. I think what happened, like COVID showed them, showed that this is an essential industry, and so as such, the technology has sped up within that industry, and it's opened up a lot of opportunities for individuals looking to get into this space. And to Dave's point, I'm having more conversations now about electronic commerce and e-wallet banking more than ever. So I think under this new administration, if things if they keep their word, which in politics it's often
What?
disputable.
No, I always believe politicians. They're
but if they keep their word, then we're going to see tremendous growth, and I really think especially coming off a pandemic, looking at an industry to grow, when you're talking of wages and things like that, this is the one. And so I'm looking for 2021 to be even bigger than 2020 was. And the industry saw over 40% year over year growth last year, so it's not going away. And a lot of governors don't want it to go away. They're trying to figure out how they can get it because of the tax revenues and things like that.
I want to add something else too. It's interesting. We're just our company alone, RCS. We always had a separate website for our cannabis solution. For years, we got in the cannabis space some 8 years ago, and we're so cautious as far as exposing the fact that we sold to the cannabis space to our other customers and also prospects. And we're just so cautious and like kind of sheltered and stuff. And this past, 6 months ago, we decided to bring it underneath the RCS umbrella. So the RCS website. So now it's part of the RCS website. And I had some concerns when we first launched it, but the impact was actually we had a lot of customers that were excited about it. The fact that we're in the cannabis space. So it's becoming accepted.
Any blowback whatsoever, Dave? Any blowback
What's
at
that?
all?
No blowback whatsoever.
Nothing
No,
negative. Okay.
no blowback at all, which is.
And to Dave's point, I apologize, guys. I think we're hitting that obligatory delay. But to Dave's point, look at just what we're doing here. If I had to come to you, 6 years ago, when me and Dave were first, talking about this, if I had come to you and said, "Hey, Jim, what about putting a cannabis podcast?" You would have probably told me, "Have you lost your mind?"
That's right.
My ongoing joke has always been I want to stay on the straight and narrow in case I want to run for Congress someday. And now it just seems like, it seems like I mean, I'm in Pennsylvania. Lieutenant Governor is John Fetterman, and he's planning on running for the Senate. And that's one of his big things is hanging a cannabis flag outside the state capitol and promoting legalized marijuana in Pennsylvania. I mean, I'm not, Pennsylvania is more a middle of the road, leaning red, purple kind of state. And he's just, I don't think, he's getting a lot of pushback from that. So I guess tying in with that, so we're talking about how attitudes have changed. And when you alluded to, some of the regulations. So, for folks who aren't up to speed on the cannabis industry. So every election in 2020 where cannabis initiatives were on the ballot, they weren't just approved, but they won by huge margins. So it's something that the voters have really wanted. So beyond that change, are there other important changes in this vertical market that our audience should be aware of? And so, Duane, if you can take a crack at that first, what has changed besides attitudes and some of the legalities in the past 12 months?
Well, from an industry perspective, according to some of the data that's out there, the cannabis industry is the fastest growing American industry right now in terms of jobs. So, if you look at 2019, I think, they estimate there was like 211,000 full-time workers in the cannabis industry. And then if you look at ancillary businesses that, aren't 100% tied to the cannabis, like each of us here, you're looking at over 300,000 jobs being created. And so it kind of gets back to the point, I was talking about before. If you're looking to pull a country out of, right now they're saying record unemployment. What's the best way to do that is to have, first and foremost, is to address this pandemic. I'm not in any way implying that any cannabis legislation should supersede that, because, if people aren't comfortable going out, that's just not going to happen. But once that piece is firmly there, I mean, there's a huge green injection, that you can put into the economy. And, by them opening it up to banks and the transactions, it's just going to, stimulate the entire economy. And, now, there's been a big push towards social equity within this space. And so, right now, some of the people who have been most harmed by the plant, traditionally over the years, community colleges and organizations are now coming up with accreditations and making it so that some of these people who've been disenfranchised can, not only get jobs in this space, but as they open it up, capital, access to capital and things like that comes in there, which, traditional retailers, even beer and liquor, have access to that, where, cannabis companies don't. A lot of it is VC or angel funded. So I think everybody wins, as we move more towards whatever you want to call it, legalization, decriminalization. It opens up an opportunity. And then, I think for, some of our, more traditional retailer or resellers that have been, standing on the sidelines because, they think that this industry is so different. I think, more people are going to get into it. You're going to see more mainstream software companies come into it.
Yep.
Big tobacco will be in it, pharma. So, it's just going to push the economy to a whole nother scale.
Yeah, so Dave, if you can take that question. So, again, it's what has changed in the past year. We've talked about attitudes. We've talked about, from an election standpoint, we see some regulations are going to change. And then Duane talks about the fast growth and then kind of the mainstreaming and mainstream organizations getting involved. What would you add to that?
Well, I was reading an article this past weekend from the most recent MJ Biz Daily, and it states that Senator Leader Schumer is pushing federal marijuana legalization as a priority. So it talks about, it's happening, and it's interesting actually looking at where they are now as far as the growth. I mean, the growth potential. What's going to happen between now and 2024? They're right now, I think in 2019 it was what, $10 billion. 2020 was 15. They're projecting 2024 to be 37 billion. So the growth is just staggering. And this is in spite of, just the obstacles that are presented to the cannabis industry as a whole. I mean, really, things like access to banking, like Duane was saying. They can't get loans, normal loans like most retailers. Landlords, if they have to rent, if they don't purchase, landlords tend to gouge as far as rent because it's considered a high risk industry. As far as the taxing too, which is interesting, where they can't do the typical business expenses as far as from their taxes like normal industries can, because it's still considered illegal, federally illegal. And this expected growth is with all these regulations in place. So once those are lifted, it's just going to be this propellant. It's just going to go.
So tell me if this is, pride myself on having the most ridiculous analogies in the channel, but tell me if what you guys think of this. Like you're on a track, you have 8 people running right in a sprint, but one person has hurdles in their lane, right? And that person is jumping over the hurdles and they are still winning the race while everybody else is sprinting. And is that kind of what you're saying, Dave, in terms of,
Yeah, pretty
this
much.
thing's going great now?
That's a great analogy. Yep, yep. It's pretty much
Yeah,
what's happening is they have all these hurdles up there. Yep.
yeah, it's kind of like the industry giving the 3 of us a full lap ahead of Michael Phelps, and then letting him dive into the pool. You know,
It is. It's really
Dave,
staggering if you think about, everything that's thrown at these cannabis companies and stuff. And it's, man, they're just coming out of it. They keep getting this stuff thrown at them, the taxes, the regulations, and once they're lifted, and there's also, Philip Morris approached us as far as opening up these vape stores, and they have a large flagship store they're opening in Atlanta. And you know why they're doing it is they're just setting up the market. They're just setting up the store, the storefront, the whole consumer experience store. So you know that they're starting to play the game as far as getting ready for it too. So it's interesting what's going to happen.
Can you dive into that a little bit if I'm understanding correctly? You're saying Philip Morris is opening up vape stores, and you're thinking that is essentially going to be, no pun intended, a gateway into cannabis dispensaries in some of these other states. Am I understanding that correctly?
That is a yes. I truly believe that way too. And I think we also have some customers that are vape stores that have been around for a while, like smoke shops, and they're opening up, next door. One's called Smokers Haven. Next door is Cannabis Haven. So really, they were progressive years ago, knowing that when it becomes legal, they want to be ready for it. So they actually bought the building, put in a smoker's shop, and next door now they're opening up cannabis stores next door. So, and you're seeing more of that where they're kind of setting the stage to be ready for it.
yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys are looking at all kinds of things like consumption lounges,
Yep.
where it would be, kind of like a cigar bar, that sort of thing, where you can try before you buy, large quantities and things like that. And so, it's, I think when they made these an essential business, a lot of these, owners in this industry took that and they pushed, the door in a bit more. I've read about dispensaries that have drive-through windows. In Colorado, they now have vending machines, in some of the dispensaries where you can, go in there and without dealing with anybody, just purchase straight from the vending machine. Delivery is happening like
Yep.
crazy. These
Yep.
are all the things, when I was in college, we would sit there and dream that one day in someone else's lifetime we might see something like this, and now it's become a reality, and as such it opens up a lot of opportunity for resellers who are willing to be nimble and agile in this industry,
Right.
and think outside of the box.
So build on that point, please, Duane, and then I'm going to get Dave's take on it as well, because somebody could be listening to this. They're a VAR, they're an ISV executive, and they're like, well, good that it's a growing market, but how am I going to take advantage of it? So what is the opportunity in this space for resellers and ISVs?
In my opinion, the opportunity is tremendous. I mean, this industry right now hits on everything from media, point of sale, printers, security cameras, digital signage, RFID. They're going after all of it. And anything where in a lot of other industries there's been a pushback as far as employing technology or deploying technology. In this industry, if it's making them more operationally efficient and it helps service their customers, these guys are willing to kick the tires. And what I've seen is that dispensary owners and grow owners who do have a relationship with a good reseller, they lean on that relationship. They don't want to meet with the point of sale, manufacturer, the scanner manufacturer, the digital signage manufacturer. These guys value the relationship, and a reseller they want to focus on their primary business. And right now, they know that everyone else knows this is a tremendously fast growing business. And so everybody's reaching out to them. And I'm sure there are probably resellers who have gone to a show or something like that, or walked into a dispensary, and they left their card and are trying to figure out why these guys don't call them, because they don't want to. They want to deal with, they want to establish a relationship with someone that they trust, and that's who they want to work through. They don't want to work through, have to talk to each individual manufacturer and things like that. Their time is more valuable. What would you say, Dave?
Boy, I think the potential is like we've never seen before, because based on the growth, the growth trajectory is so great. And what's challenging and interesting is that it's so fragmented as far as what they use. They're getting bombarded from different vendors, suppliers. They always look. I think they look at the point of sale aspect of it as they look at getting the license first and getting the location first, and then, oh, by the way, we have to get something to be able to run the front of the house, the store. And it's always like the last purchase. And I've seen where a lot of the existing systems they have in place tend to be non-retail hardened systems in place. So there's a big opportunity for education. How can we, as VARs or ISVs, really help these guys and really educate them as far as a true retail solution? And that's the aspect of it, or also something, that covers the whole journey of a customer. And I think that's we had to kind of step back and figure out we're not just point of sale suppliers. We're really providing a solution that satisfies the journey of a consumer, which I think the pandemic has really made it so it's vital that all these retailers have a solution that can actually follow the journey of a customer, because the consumers have become less tolerant, and there's so many choices out there. So I think the opportunities for resellers are if they go in and offer a comprehensive solution and offer education associated with it, they're going to win. But I think that's becoming important, and also trying to get to the right people as far as education and get them to commit to education, and that's the other part of it too.
Yeah, I mean, well said. Go ahead, Duane.
To Dave's point, and don't apologize, I get choked up on this industry sometimes myself. But to Dave's point, I think a lot of times, resellers forget that there's a reason why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listening is more important than speaking. And so listen to, what some of the obstacles that these guys have. I had the pleasure, Dave invited me on a site visit with him almost a year ago this time. And while we were sitting there, the guy, he was saying, like one of the things they pride themselves on is, customer engagement, face to face. This was, pre-pandemic, of course. And then we walked out into the dispensary, and if you had seen how they had it up, I mean, it was the most unorthodox setup I've ever seen. And I'm thinking to myself, they had 2 big screens, and then, there was, like the cash drawer there. And I'm like, God, you're blocked off from your customer. And,
right.
That's when Dave started talking to them and showing them, more different options, because these guys were using Dell computer screens and such, just manipulating it in that way. And we need to do a better job, because to Dave's point, these guys spend hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on the grow and the process. And no one has really hammered home the value in enterprise grade technology to them. A lot of these guys are, it's a very millennial driven, industry. And so, they're aware of technology, but I think they piece and parse it together instead of looking at it as an purchase the right equipment the first time and then that equipment can grow and expand as your business expands. And so, that's really an area for resellers to hammer at. Simply saying, hey, we've been in business for 30, 40, 50 years doesn't really resonate with them.
Right. I mean, we're dealing with really, if you think about the customer that we're dealing with, a reseller is, we're really dealing with non-conformists. We're dealing with an industry where they came in as somehow they're related to the cannabis in whatever form or fashion, but they know the industry and they became a retailer, and they're really non-conformists. So it's really trying to work with them as far as how we can actually drive in the right direction as far as looking at the retail technology aspect of the business as being vital, and really educating them on the fact where they make so many times you go in there and they've gone through 2, 3, 4 systems. So we always go in and saying, we're going to be your last system, because they've gone through all these different systems, and it's the next shiny thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, before we pause for a quick commercial break, just want to say, it sounds like what you're saying is, both of you, is coming out of this, you want to be that retail expert where you can guide the owner about here's how a dispensary should work. And then also, if all along you've been a total solution provider, not just providing a fraction of the solution, but all the solution, you'll be able to walk in, and that's going to give you a leg up on anybody else. And then notice this is also an opportunity to be a trusted advisor and provide that education. And obviously, it's something that we preach here at the RSPA so much, though it's the name of the freaking podcast, right? Like, it's not an accident we call this the trusted advisor, because we want all VARs to
Exactly.
really fill that mode. So there might be things that VARs and ISVs need to learn more about the cannabis vertical, which that's why you can join the RSPA and join our cannabis community and partner with folks like Dave and Duane. But yeah, there's certainly an opportunity for here. So I'm glad you guys talked about that, not just the big growth in general, but also for everybody. So Dave, this is a chance for you to pause and get a drink of water. So we're going to let our listeners and viewers know an RSPA membership has never been more valuable or more affordable. Annual memberships for VARs start at just $250 a year for dozens of high-value services, including legal advisor, security advisor, business advisor, exclusive e-learning programs through the RSPA Academy, discounts on business services, and a college scholarship program for the families of RSPA members. Vendors and software developers benefit from an RSPA membership as well through introductions to VAR and ISV members, and by showcasing their solutions through the exclusive RSPA Solutions Center. Accelerate your success by joining the RSPA today. Also, thanks to our sponsors who support the RSPA and make this podcast and video series possible. Our platinum sponsors are BlueStar and Shift4 Payments. Thank you, Duane, for approving that. Our gold sponsors are Heartland and ScanSource. And with this being a special episode, we also want to thank the sponsors of the RSPA Cannabis Community: APG Cash Drawer, BlueStar, Star Micronics, 420 MSP, Marijuana Venture Magazine, Touch Dynamic, Partner Tech, and Epson. To receive the benefits of an RSPA membership or RSPA sponsorship, email membership@gorspa.org. That's membership@gorspa.org. And finally, and this will end our commercial break, don't forget to save the date for Retail Now 2021. That's July 25th through 27th in Nashville. Retail Now is where the industry meets. And I have to say, commercials they're not particularly inspiring, but the fact that I read off so many names, I think it's 8 sponsors of the cannabis community, which when we talked a year ago wasn't even a thought in our mind. It really does show the acceptance of some mainstream organizations, really reputable organizations, that they're willing to put some money, put their name, and attach it to this vertical market. So,
all right. I'm sure that's gonna, probably double. By the time we do this, at least double. If we do this again next year. So one other point I wanted to make related to the last question before the commercial is I think resellers should also look at collaboration. Because a lot of resellers, look at, they're more inclined to stay in their lane, and I get that. But collaborative effort, if you don't play in certain areas, there's no reason why not to form a collaboration so that you can do things that may not be to your core. So I think that's an area where resellers could definitely do a better job.
Mhm.
And Dave, can I ask and I guess two questions, Dave. So A, how are you collaborating with other organizations to accelerate your learning curve, even though you've been in this for a while? And then also if you can talk about the electronic payment option that you offer to dispensary owners, because that's a real reason why I think a lot of VARs are hesitant to get into this space, because they say, am I able to get all the payments residuals? No, then wait until I get around to doing that. So I guess first talk about collaboration and then how you're able to take advantage of electronic payments by doing something yourself.
Yeah, as far as collaboration is, we over the years we've kind of built relationships with different. Instead of reinventing the wheel, we decided we'd build relationships with individuals that had actually built this solution set. So again, it's so we can actually provide a solution that does the whole journey of a consumer, and and I think it's becoming more vital now than ever because of the pandemic, where you have to have a complete, comprehensive solution. and it's interesting when you look at a lot of cannabis retailers, where you might have like here in Fort Collins, there's a retail store which is a large presence, which happens to be a customer, but literally next door there's a competitor, and and that's how they build their stores. Is this large cannabis retailer builds a store, and other people build another one right next to them. So they pretty much get the overflow. So the larger customer has to really make sure that they capture the whole customer experience. And it's people have become intolerant as far as if you walk in a store now and you purchase something and you don't feel safe, or the transaction took too long, or the interaction was too challenging, then chances are you probably won't go back to that location. And I think so. It's important as far as resellers to make sure that we have the solution set. And however you do it too, and I think it's important to actually build relationships with other individuals that have already built that solution. So we've actually worked with suppliers where we can actually provide a solution that covers it from their first interaction online. So they can actually order online, pick up at store, curbside pickup. They can do queue management, and a little bit about payment too is the challenge with online payment always has been for cannabis retailers is they can't do payments online. So they really can't commit as far as the transactions. So the abandoned carts are 20%. So for whatever reason, it could be because you wanted to purchase product from the store, and then your spouse found out that you're spending money on cannabis and decided to not let you go pick up the goods. So they have all these abandoned carts at the retail establishment. So they have to they pick the inventory, they get it ready, and then they don't show up. So again, that's part of the whole be able to actually take payment online, but having a whole journey. So when they get to the store, so they can actually pick up quickly, do curbside pickup, and then if they have to go in the store, so they feel safe within the store. And that's everything from, we'll talk a little bit about from the splash guards to all the other important aspects of letting customers feel safe.
Yeah, and are you offering something now, just so I'm understanding, that are able to take electronic payments? Like that's one of the innovations that you have focused on, in 2020 to make that happen. Am I correct on that?
It is. So I think the biggest challenge for, if you think about just them dealing with cash alone, is there's so many aspects to cash that create challenges, and one is just the exposure, the management of it, the loss prevention alone, the fact that you need to have you need to have security. Um, there's some cannabis retailers that deliver their tax payments in a satchel to pay their taxes. There's yeah, it's
Like
crazy.
it's out of a gangster movie, right? Like put it on a briefcase and show it around.
Laugh,
It's
I have friends in the industry who get paid. It's almost Godfather or mafioso style, where every 2 weeks they get a cash envelope, full of cash, and
it's
that's how they're paid.
it really is. It's almost like the gangster days.
Yeah,
So And talking to some of these guys, how the process of cash is they they have ATM machines. Most of the retail dispensaries have ATM machines within the location, so you can get cash. But some of them, it became so labor intensive keeping the machine filled with cash. So now they do vouchers where you put cash in and you get a voucher for payment. But just the management of cash alone, and also what's involved in actually getting cash and having cash go to your defaults and so forth, it's just onerous. And also being in retail for years, it's always that exposure you have and the risk aspect of it, where you have employees seeing this till filled with cash, and it's unless it's high security, and of course the cameras, but it's almost like you're uh, you're inviting a potential problem because it's there.
Yeah, it's like bringing a cake to a Weight Watchers meeting, right? Like
Yeah, exactly.
you want people to stay on the straight and narrow. You don't put, cake and ice cream in
Yep.
front of
Yep.
everybody. So
So we've been
Now,
looking for something. Sorry, Dwayne. We've been looking for
go
something
ahead, finish.
for years, as far as an alternative solution for it. And knowing that credit cards, when it becomes legal, credit cards are going to be years behind. It's going to take it forever to actually go through the process. There's still a challenge with CBD now, as far as if it's ingested, they'll pretty much deny a CBD store for using credit cards. Um, so I think it's what we, after doing some investigation, due diligence on different payment types, and there's a lot out there saying they're the next best thing for payments. We found something that is it's a true digital payment process. So what happens is you scan a QR code. So when you get to the store, you scan a QR code. You set yourself up as far as from your bank to the retailer's bank. It's direct payment between banks, and it can also be done online too. And it can be either integrated with your point of sale system or not, so it's not necessary. But it's approved in all states. So they did all their homework as far as making sure that it was legit. And what's interesting about it too is you get funded the next day, where with cash, gosh, it might be before you can actually have it, so it actually hits the institution. It takes 5 days, 7 days. This is funded the next business day, and just the reconciliation aspects of it is so simplistic, other than cash. Um, and also the abandoned carts. So when they go online and place an order online for pickup, you get commitment online. So you actually put the payment in and stuff, and you get commitment online. So we've introduced it probably 6 months ago now, and the adoption rate has been tremendous. And also CBD too are looking at it too. So it's been good, and the success rate's been really high too, where they love it because it also builds customer loyalty. So it's also, we have a lot of thrift stores looking at it because you can use it for donations. And for cannabis, their rate is 2.5%, which is pretty inexpensive for processing. It's like Amex.
yeah.
So
So Duane, I want to thank you, Dave, for that detail.
Yep.
That's very helpful to get like really specific what's one reseller doing. And I'm curious, Duane, if you can kind of help speak to the resellers and ISVs in the audience who might have heard what Dave was talking about and have the devil on one shoulder saying, that seems really complicated, just stick with what you're doing. But the angel on the shoulder saying like, man, that sounds like a lot of opportunity from a cash management standpoint, and then from an electronics payment standpoint, and then all the other technologies underneath. So I guess, Duane, who should the VARs listen to? Should they listen to the angel? Should they listen to the devil?
I'd say listen to both, because there are a lot of people in this industry that are promising a lot of things, and once you start peeling the layers of the onion, you start to realize that some of these are no more than essentially money laundering. They're pretending to be one business but are really another, or offshoring. And so we've tried for years. We've vetted different companies that have made certain claims. And to Dave's point, we've settled on we're settled on a couple and working through them. I'm seeing where e-wallet solutions, electronic wallet solutions, kind of like the Apple Pay model. where you go in and you load money into this electronic wallet, and then you're able to transact the business regardless. And so some of the ones that we've been looking at are ones that they're not completely focused on cannabis. They actually are looking at traditional retail as well. And so you could go into a Home Depot, a Lowe's, a Target, use that app on the phone and make that payment, and then you can also walk into your dispensary, if they're a member, and utilize it there. Which and like Dave said, you're looking at the money transferring, probably I think it's like 24 hours or something like that into your account. Since it's not riding over the Visa MasterCard rails, it seems to be accepted. And these the guys who we've been utilizing, they and I mean, like they're showing us where they have layers upon layers upon layers of security, as well as making sure that, their attorneys are constantly going out there to make sure that they're not doing anything that's not in compliance. And so but on the cash side of things, you're also seeing where manufacturers are coming up with cash management solutions. That'll probably be rolled out pretty soon, because I don't anticipate cash going away
Right.
anytime soon. I think that that's still going to be the big demand, especially for in-store purchases. I see the e-wallet and those type of things really being something that places that can do delivery. You don't want your driver driving around with a bunch of cannabis and cash. That's a
right.
carjacking.
It's a double whammy.
Right. And so, so I know, some of the manufacturers that play in the cash drawer space are coming out real soon with cash management solutions and things like that, because, I mean, that's still going to be, the biggest devil in the detail, right there. But there are legitimate options, and I would encourage anybody to either, talk to Dave or reach out to myself, and we can, put you in, get you engaged. And, like
Right.
Dave said, a lot of these guys are leveraging it with loyalty. 5-6 years ago, your interaction with a dispensary was, you give them your cell phone and they'll send you a text message from time to time, as far as specials and sales and things like that. But now, even I'm seeing where growers are, placing QR codes on their labels so that you can, get more information, and you can sign up for official special requests, because these guys are trying to figure out who's utilizing their product, what they're utilizing it for, and then also to build loyalty demand. If there's a particular brand, it's no different than Nike versus Adidas or Reebok, whichever one you like, that's who you tend to sign up for. And then people organically start looking into the company and figuring out like I want to know more, like their cultivation process. Are these guys using organic materials, things like that? And I see that demand only increasing as this expands nationally, because when I was in the last time I was in Seattle, which seems like forever now, they were telling me
it was
they were telling me that people no longer buy based off of strains, so to speak. They have their favorite grower, and they want to follow that grower. They want to know when new product is coming out. A lot like microbreweries and craft beer. Where I live in Cincinnati, when certain manufacturers come out, with a new special brew, you can have a line for several hours of people waiting just to get one bottle. Which is something I never thought that I would see. But that's how we are as a society. We have access to information, and we just consume more and more and more. And so, I think, to Dave's point, leveraging the technology along with the electronic payments, it's a recipe for success.
Right.
Right.
For VARs and ISVs. So we're running short on time. I have one last question. I'm hoping you guys
Yep.
can answer in kind of a rapid fire fashion. So when we talked a year ago, you both mentioned how immersing yourself in cannabis trade shows really helped you understand the market. And you both stressed today how VARs and ISVs need to educate themselves. So can you talk, Dave, first, and then Duane, what have you done? What are you doing in lieu of trade shows, which have been canceled because of the pandemic, from an education and also from a marketing and lead gen perspective? So Dave first, like, what do you do? And I guess our listeners will probably could pattern this as well.
I think a lot of it is publications. The MJ Biz Daily is just an incredible publication as far as staying current on what's happening out there. There's also a company called Cannabis Media, and same thing. You can actually stay current as far as new and upcoming, what's coming as far as new licenses, new states, legalization, and we stay in touch with that. And also, you can get a list of all the new licenses that are being reviewed. Of course, attending RSPA and the webinars, the podcasts that you have, which are pretty awesome. Of course, Duane has so much knowledge, and he's always understands what's happening in the marketplace. So he's good to get to, which I don't want to bombard Duane with all these, which means I probably won't be able to get a hold of him. But
You'll always be able to get a hold of me, Dave.
But I think a lot of it too is I think it's important to actually experience the process of visiting a dispensary, where it's if you're uncomfortable going in a dispensary, it's probably not the right vertical market for you to go after.
Right.
But you should walk in a dispensary and really understand the process that they go through, and also try to engage with them as far as the current technology stack, what they're currently using. And you'll learn a lot there because most of them are challenged with what they have, and they're looking for other options. But I think and also if you can, which is, I know we've done it, where if you have an existing customer, you can actually go and actually work behind the counter and really understand the flow and what they do and the challenges they have. And we've done it, and we have a lot of people we sell in Anthea that have to do it. You have to go and work a couple hours in the store just so they understand all the challenges they face and what in the education process and how they know the product and how their technology can actually help them. So I think it's important. So
Great answer, Duane. How have you been staying close with having to stay in Cincinnati 24/7, 365?
Right. Thank you, Jim. Slap me back to reality. A lot of it has been, I've been blessed to where, I've got some really good resellers in this space that are, willing to, really share a lot of information. Webinars, most of the time I'm actually, helping to do it, but I still learn, a lot from other, panelists that are on there. And then, another thing I would say is look towards some of the social equity, areas or groups in your area, because now, there's been a tremendous cry for social equity within this industry. And so, there are some big players out there that are a part of this. And, I don't want to, name any specifics, but I mean some huge multi-state operators, that are on those committees and a part of that. And then, the other thing is I would say take advantage of some of the virtual, shows that are out there, because, a virtual show is not as good as being in person, but, you have to play the hand that you're dealt. And, all of us would like to be able to get out in person, but what you can leverage those virtual shows for is to, it's an inexpensive way to get your brand, your company out there, and to also start, building a repository of customers that you can then market to. So, if you had to pay $1,000 for a virtual booth, what would you pay in order to get one of those lists where, someone who goes into your virtual booth you're able to get their contact information. And then, you know, with this being such a word of mouth industry, you know, they might come through your virtual booth, and then when we are able to get live, then they'll say, "Oh, Anthea, I saw you guys at this virtual show." And, you know, also look to partner. I mean, you know, Dave talked about MJ Biz Daily. You've got Cannabis Dispensary Magazine, Cannabis Business Times, Hemp Growers, Marijuana Venture. You know, there's a lot of reputable periodical companies, you know, that are out there that you can partner with. And, you know, and of course, without saying, if you're a reseller and, you know, you work with BlueStar, you've got access to me. So, you know, hit me up, you know, have your sales rep get you in touch with me if you don't already have my contact information. I'm typically, you know, I'm more than willing to share, you know, my connections and contacts, you know, as much as I can without, you know, it becoming a competitive, you know, situation with someone else. But yeah, you know, and tune into the RSPA cannabis, you know, meetings. I mean, that's a way where, you know, you can see across the entire spectrum, you know, because it's a variety of resellers that are in the industry, looking to get into the industry, looking to sell their software into the industry. So, you know, it's one of those, you know, you don't have to necessarily come in with value to bring, but, you know, if you're willing to learn and listen, you know, I think it's very impactful and very beneficial. There's the second commercial. How's that, Jim?
No, that's very good. I was going to say, I should have had you guys read that halfway through. So, no, great list you guys both gave. And again, thanks, you know, for plugging the RSPA cannabis community. Like you said, if you just want to listen in and then see who are the movers and the shakers there, and you can reach out to them directly. I also do want to promote our two media partners, Harry Brelsford at 420 MSP. That's a great website. And then Greg James at Marijuana Venture. So if you're an RSPA member, we can connect you with Greg and get you a free, discounted or free subscription to Marijuana Venture magazine. I do also want to mention, this isn't actually official, but it's official enough that I can mention it here. At Retail Now 2021, again, July in 25th through 27th in Nashville, we are planning on having a cannabis track. So that's going to be another great opportunity for you to rub elbows with people, or I guess 6 feet away, rub elbows with people, and also really learn about this industry as well. So a lot of opportunity out there if you are willing to take the initiative, right? These opportunities aren't going to come to you. You've got to go and take the initiative. So, well, that does it for this episode of The Trusted Advisor. We hope you enjoyed our discussion. If you did, be sure to subscribe to the RSPA YouTube channel and the Trusted Advisor podcast so you never miss an episode. We'd also appreciate if you'd rate us where you find your favorite podcasts. My personal philosophy is the more stars, the better. And if you'd like to learn more best practices for VARs and ISVs in the retail technology industry, check out the RSPA blog. You can find it at gorspa.org and then clicking on RSPA blog. Before we go, big thanks again to Duane and Dave for sharing their wisdom with us today. Gentlemen, tipping my cap to you definitely for sharing your knowledge with us. And thanks to RSPA Marketing. My pleasure as well. Thanks to RSPA Marketing Manager Chris Arnold for his production work, Joseph McDade for our music, and last but not least, thanks so much to you for listening. Our goal at the RSPA is to accelerate the success of our members in the point-of-sale ecosystem by providing knowledge and connections. For more information, visit our website at gorspa.org. Thanks for listening, and goodbye, everybody.